Silence is a decision, not a weakness. That's the hard truth most people never want to face. Here's the hook. When you finally walk away and go quiet, you don't disappear. You become the lesson. Before we dive in, hit the like button and subscribe, because what we're about to say might save you months of pain and years of chasing people who don't deserve you. Stay with me. Hey folks, imagine this. You're a lighthouse on a dark coast. For a long time, you kept the light spinning for someone who kept drifting in and out, crashing, leaving, coming back when it suited them. One night you turned the light off, not out of anger, but out of wisdom. Suddenly, they can't navigate anymore. They realize it wasn't the ocean guiding them. It was you. That's silence, not a tantrum, not a trick, a boundary. My friend, silence is like taking your seatbelt off in a parked car. You're not going anywhere, but you're also done with the ride they keep jerking you around on. Here's another picture. Think of your attention like oxygen. Some people don't value it until the room gets quiet and the air gets thin. When you stop explaining, stop defending, stop chasing, they feel the drop right away. They'll say you're cold. They'll call you stubborn. They'll joke about it to their friends. But privately, they're checking their phone every hour, wondering why your name doesn't show. Funny, right? The same people who rolled their eyes at your effort now miss the very effort they mocked. It's like ignoring the sun all day and then complaining at night that it's dark. Let me break a lie real quick. Talking it out fixes everything. No, talking fixes what respect allows. If there's no respect, more words are just fuel for manipulation. Silence is the truth you offer when words keep getting twisted. As Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Translation: let them misread your silence. You're not living to update their opinion. You're living to upgrade your peace. Picture your mind like a clean gym. Every time you argue back, every time you explain your worth to someone committed to not seeing it, you're letting them dump trash on your floor. Silence is you locking the doors, turning on your music and getting back to work, lifting your standards, training your focus, building your future. A little fun fact: peace has a sound. It sounds like your phone not blowing up at 2 a.m. with drama you didn't order. Here's the power shift. When you were reactive, they felt large. When you became quiet, the mirror turned around. Now they hear their own echo. That's why silence gets into their head. Not because you're playing games, but because you stopped playing at all. You chose to be the referee of your life, not the clown in someone else's circus. And yes, some will try to bait you back. Random emojis, old photos. Hey, stranger. Smile. Keep walking. Remember Marcus Aurelius. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. The moment you mastered your reaction, you won. So today, choose the harder path. Calm over chaos, dignity over debate, direction over drama. You're not running away, you're walking toward yourself. You're not punishing them, you're protecting you. If they wanted access, they should have guarded your peace when they had it. Stay with me, because we're going to unpack how your silence turns confusion into clarity and turns you from available into unforgettable. End this with action. Type your affirmation in the comments and seal it. I choose silence. Press like, hit subscribe, and let's move. Calm, steady, and untouchable. Number 1. Silence as the loudest echo. Silence is the most powerful scream. My friends, let that sink in. You see, when you finally walk away and stop explaining yourself to them, your quiet becomes louder than every argument you ever had. It cuts through the noise of their life like thunder in a calm sky. At first, they'll laugh, they'll shrug, they'll act as if you're just bluffing. They'll even tell themselves, he'll be back, he always comes back. But as the hours turn into days, and the days turn into weeks, your silence starts to echo in their head. And here's the part they never expected. It's not just an echo, it's a mirror. Every moment of silence bounces back at them, showing them the reflection they've been running from. Picture this. Imagine walking into a massive, empty hall, clapping your hands once, and hearing that sound bounce off every wall. It grows louder because there's nothing else to absorb it. That's exactly how your silence feels to them. They can't drown it out with noise, they can't argue with it, and they can't twist it. It just echoes. And in that echo, they start asking themselves questions they never dared to ask before. Did I push too far? Did I misjudge his patience? Is he really gone this time? That uncertainty terrifies them, because before they always had the comfort of knowing you would respond. Now they don't. Let me break a lie here. They told themselves that silence means indifference, that you're cold, that you're heartless. But that's not the truth. Silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you've cared too much, for too long, and now you're choosing yourself. You see, people think words are the ultimate power in relationships. They believe if they talk enough, if they provoke enough, if they scream loud enough, they can control the narrative. But what they never understood is that silence tells a truth words never could. When you argue, they still know they have space in your heart. When you explain, they still know they matter enough to take your energy. But when you stay silent, that's the first time they realize they might not matter at all, and that realization rattles them. Think of it like this. Silence is like suddenly pulling the plug on their favorite show mid-season. No finale, no closure, no explanation, just blank screens. They're left pacing, replaying the scenes, trying to figure out what happened, why it ended, and what they missed. The brain hates unfinished stories, and your silence is the unfinished story they can't escape. They thought they'd always have the last word. Now, there are no words at all, and the lack of sound grows heavier with each passing day. The fear hits hardest at night. During the day, they can distract themselves with noise, scrolling on their phone, talking to friends, filling their life with temporary attention. But at night, when the world gets quiet, your silence becomes deafening. They lie in bed replaying memories, hearing your laugh in their mind, seeing your face in places you used to go together. It's like their mind turns into a movie theater, projecting everything they lost. And the worst part, they can't turn it off. They can't call you to break the silence because they know deep down they're the reason for it. Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." But your silence flips this lesson back on them. Now, instead of listening to you, they're forced to listen to themselves. And they don't like what they hear. They hear their own arrogance, their own mistakes, their own pride. Silence forces them to face the reality they avoided with arguments and games. They pushed away someone who was real. And now, there's no way to spin it, no way to blame it on you. But why is it so hard for them to accept? Because silence destroys the illusion of control. For so long, they thought they held the strings. They believed they could push you away, and you'd chase, ignore you, and you'd explain, hurt you, and you'd still forgive. Silence proves they were wrong. Silence cuts the strings and shows them you were never their puppet. You were always free, and walking away was simply you choosing to remember that freedom. Let me tell you this, folks. The reason silence shakes them so deeply is because it shifts the power dynamic completely. They go from certainty to doubt, from confidence to insecurity. They don't know what's going on in your head anymore. Before, they had access to your emotions. If you were upset, you spoke. If you were hurt, you showed it. If you were angry, you reacted. But silence? Silence is unreadable. It's a locked door with no key, and that mystery gnaws at them day and night. And here's the beauty. Silence doesn't just mess with their head, it heals yours. While they're stuck replaying the past, you're building your future. While they're pacing in regret, you're walking in peace. While they're haunted by what they lost, you're energized by what you gained. Silence is not just absence, it's presence. It's the presence of strength, of clarity, of discipline. You're no longer living in their chaos, you're living in your calm. Now, my friends, I know it's not easy. Choosing silence feels unnatural at first. You want to explain, you want to defend yourself, you want to scream, "This is what you did to me." But remember this, every word you give them is another weapon they can twist. Silence is not weakness, it's mastery. It's you refusing to be pulled back into a storm you've already walked out of. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best answer to anger is silence." Think about that. The best answer is no answer at all. So the next time you're tempted to break the silence, remind yourself your quiet is teaching them lessons your words never could. You're not running from conflict, you're rising above it. You're not hiding, you're healing. You're not avoiding, you're advancing. And here's your affirmation for today. My silence is my strength. Type it in the comments right now. Show yourself, show the world. Let it echo louder than any words ever could. Stay with me, because what's coming next will reveal exactly how silence flips the script completely, making them feel the one thing they swore they'd never feel: helpless without you. Number 2, the collapse of their control. Power is not given, it's taken. My friends, that line cuts deep because it reveals why silence shakes them to their core. For so long, they thought they were in charge. They believed they could toy with your emotions, pull you close, push you away, and still keep you orbiting around them like the sun never moved. But when you walk away and choose silence, the game flips. The power they thought they owned was never theirs. It was only borrowed from your attention. And the moment you took that attention back, the entire illusion crumbled. Imagine this: a puppeteer yanking strings, smiling, knowing the puppet will move exactly how they want. Now imagine the puppet cutting the strings mid-show and walking off stage. That's what your silence feels like to them. For years, they thought they were the ones pulling you, but in truth, you were choosing to respond. And when you finally choose not to, the stage goes dark, the strings dangle useless, and they're left looking foolish in front of an empty crowd. They'll never admit it, but that loss of control terrifies them. They'll start asking themselves questions they don't have answers to. Why isn't he reacting? Did I lose my grip? Did I push too far? Their pride tells them you'll return, but their gut knows you've changed. And that gut feeling is what keeps them awake at night, scrolling through their phone, waiting for a message that never comes. Let's break another lie. They told themselves they were strong because you were weak, that your chasing, your explanations, your effort proved they were irresistible. But here's the truth. Your effort wasn't weakness. It was generosity. You chose to love, to forgive, to fight for something they treated lightly. And silence proves that all along the strength was in you, not them. If they were truly powerful, they wouldn't crumble when your voice disappeared. If their control was real, they wouldn't panic at your indifference. Think of silence like cutting electricity to a house. At first, they light a candle, smile, pretend it's no big deal. But as hours pass and the dark grows heavier, every shadow looks threatening, every sound feels louder. Eventually, the reality sinks in. They don't control the power grid. They only enjoyed it when it was flowing, and once it's gone, there's nothing they can do but sit in the dark. That's what silence does to them. It exposes the fact that they were never the source of the energy. You were. Here's the psychological trap. They thrived on predictability. They knew if they insulted you, you'd defend yourself. If they pulled away, you'd chase. If they acted cold, you'd explain. That predictability was their comfort. But silence rips it away. Now you're unpredictable, and unpredictability is fear in disguise. They can't calculate your next move, can't predict your thoughts, can't measure their importance. The same person who once read you like a book now stares at blank pages. And what does fear do? It breeds obsession. The very silence that unnerves them becomes the silence they can't escape. They'll check your social media, reread old texts, replay conversations in their head, all to find a clue that restores their sense of control. But every time they find nothing, the panic builds, and panic reveals the truth. They were never as in control as they believed. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's exactly what your silence proves. You reclaimed your mind. You stopped handing over your peace for free. And in doing so, you revealed the fragility of their power. They never controlled you. They only controlled how much you reacted. And now that you don't react, their empire collapses. Yes, my friends, it's difficult at first. Choosing silence feels like holding back a flood when you want to let it burst. You want to prove your point, to scream your worth, to show them how wrong they were. But here's the secret. Silence already proves it better than any words ever could. Every day you don't respond is a day they lose a piece of the throne they thought was permanent. So remember this, your silence is not punishment, it's a revelation. It reveals who was strong and who only pretended. It shows that the strings are cut, the lights are off, the show is over, and in that quiet, the one who thought they had control finally sees the truth. They never had it at all. Affirm this with me right now. I own my silence. Type it in the comments, let it echo. Show them, show yourself, show the world that you're not here to be controlled. You're here to live free. Stay with me, because next we'll uncover how silence doesn't just take their control away, it forces them to stare into the mirror of themselves, and that mirror never lies. Number 3. The mirror effect of silence. Silence is the sleep that nourishes wisdom. Those words from Francis Bacon hit like a hammer because they remind us that silence isn't emptiness, it's a mirror. My friends, when you stop chasing, stop explaining, and stop reacting, you hand them something far scarier than your anger, a reflection of themselves. And here's the part they never expected. Silence forces them to sit with the very person they've been running from all along. Picture this. Imagine a mirror with no cracks, no filters, no fog. It shows every blemish, every scar, every truth you'd rather not see. That's what your silence becomes for them. When you spoke, they could twist your words. When you argued, they could flip the script. When you explained, they could dismiss it. But silence? Silence offers no escape. They can't argue with it. They can't manipulate it, and they can't hide from it. All they see now is themselves, and that's terrifying. They start asking questions they don't want answered. Why did he stop talking? Why isn't he chasing me? Was I really the problem? Their pride screams no, but deep inside, their conscience whispers yes. That's the mirror working. It strips away excuses and forces them to confront the cost of their arrogance. It's like standing under a spotlight in an empty stage. Suddenly, there's nowhere to hide. Let me break a lie they lived on. They told themselves your reaction was proof of your weakness. They believed your arguments meant you cared too much. Your explanations meant you were desperate. Your chasing meant you couldn't live without them. But here's the truth. Your words were never weakness. They were an investment. You invested effort because you believed in what you were building. Silence proves that investment has ended. And that's what stings, because without your words, they have no shield left. Think of it like this. Silence is a courtroom where they're the only defendant and the only judge. Every memory is evidence. Every mistake is testimony. And with no lawyer to defend them, the verdict is clear. They pushed too far, and now they're living with the consequences. The more they sit in that courtroom, the heavier the guilt becomes. And guilt, my friends, is a weight far heavier than anger. It gets worse for them at night. During the day, distractions keep the mirror blurred. Friends, parties, posts online. It's all noise, but when the noise dies down and silence creeps in, the reflection sharpens. They remember how you treated them, how you supported them, how you gave when you had nothing left to give. And now, with no words from you, those memories return like ghosts. Ghosts that don't just haunt, they accuse. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Silence forces their soul to soak in the color of regret. They may not say it out loud, but inside they start realizing, you weren't the weak one, they were. You weren't the desperate one, they were. You weren't the problem, they were. And that shift in perspective breaks their pride more than any confrontation ever could. And here's the irony. They thought silence meant you were gone. But in truth, silence makes you more present in their mind than ever before, because silence has a way of amplifying memory. The less they hear from you, the more their imagination fills the gap. And what the imagination creates is often harsher, sharper, and more painful than reality itself. They start to imagine you moving on, thriving, living without them, and that picture in their head hurts more than any words you could have spoken. So why is this so difficult for them? Because the mirror of silence doesn't just reflect who you are, it reflects who they are without you. And without you, they see the cracks in their own image. They see the emptiness they tried to cover with noise. They see the loneliness they tried to deny. Silence pulls away the curtain and leaves them staring at themselves, raw and unfiltered. And for you, that's the beauty of it. You don't have to prove anything anymore. You don't have to argue your worth, defend your love, or explain your boundaries. Silence does all the talking. It says, "I valued myself enough to walk away." It says, "I'm not here to fix what you chose to break." It says, "If you can't face yourself, that's not my burden." My friends, remember this. Silence doesn't just end the noise, it creates clarity. And clarity is priceless. You're not punishing them, you're protecting you. You're not hiding, you're healing. You're not retreating, you're rising. Here's your affirmation today. My silence reveals truth. Write it in the comments. Show yourself, show the world, show anyone watching that you don't need to speak to prove your worth. Stay with me, because what's coming next will uncover why indifference cuts deeper than hate, and why silence is the sharpest blade of all. Number 4, indifference cuts deeper than hate. Hate is still a kind of love, just poisoned. My friends, sit with that for a second, because this is where silence proves itself to be the sharpest sword. Hate means you still matter. Hate means you still occupy their mind. Hate means you still stir emotion. But indifference is the death blow. And silence, my friends, is indifference turned into a language they can't escape. Think about it. When you argue, you show them they still have access to your energy. When you defend yourself, you show them you still care how they see you. When you chase, you show them you still believe they're worth the effort. But when you stop, when you go quiet, when you walk away without a word, when you refuse to play the game, that's when they feel the knife of indifference. And trust me, it cuts deeper than hate ever could. Imagine this with me. Picture a performer on stage, giving their all, singing, dancing, sweating under the lights. Now picture an audience that doesn't boo, doesn't clap, doesn't even look up from their phones. The silence is worse than any insult, because at least anger would mean they were seen, at least hate would mean they stirred something. But silence says they don't matter enough to deserve a reaction. That's what you've given them. That's what terrifies them. They'll never admit it, but indifference feels like suffocation. And here's why. Attention is oxygen. Arguments, affection, even anger, it's all air for their ego. They breathe it in, thrive on it, build their image around it. When you stop feeding them that air, it's like cutting off their supply. At first, they'll act like they're fine. They'll laugh louder, post more pictures, show off their new happiness, but it's all just gasping for air. Because deep inside, they feel the suffocation creeping in. Let me break another lie they live by. They think the opposite of love is hate. Wrong. The opposite of love is indifference. They can survive your anger because anger still ties you to them. They can survive your sadness because sadness still places them at the center of your thoughts. But your indifference, that burns them from the inside out because it tells the truth they can't spin. You no longer see them as significant. And once they're stripped of significance, they're stripped of power. Epictetus said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." And your silence changes their opinion about themselves. Before, they thought they were irreplaceable, unforgettable, untouchable. But indifference cracks that illusion. It forces them to face the reality that they weren't as essential as they believed, and that realization wounds their ego far worse than losing your love ever could. Now here's the funny part. They'll try to provoke you back into reacting. A message here, a like on an old photo, a "hey stranger" text. But none of that is about reconnecting. It's about testing. They're desperate to know if they still have any air left in your lungs. If they can get even the smallest reaction, they can convince themselves the connection still exists. But when they're met with silence, when every attempt bounces off the wall of your indifference, the panic grows. Each failed attempt is like another blow to their pride. And while they spiral, here's what happens to you. You rise. Because indifference doesn't drain you, it frees you. You're no longer a prisoner of their storms, no longer an actor in their play, no longer a battery feeding their ego. Your silence reclaims every ounce of energy you once wasted, and that energy turns into growth. You focus on your mission, your body, your purpose. And while they suffocate in the absence of your attention, you thrive in the abundance of your focus. My friends, indifference is strength disguised as stillness. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's not cowardice, it's clarity. It's you choosing not to engage in battles that only exhaust you, and that choice alone is what makes you untouchable. So take this affirmation with you today. I owe no reaction. Write it in the comments. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that you don't need to explain, argue, or prove. Your silence says it all. Stay with me, because next we'll dive into how silence doesn't just cut, it haunts. It turns your absence into memories that echo louder than any presence ever could. Number 5. Memories that haunt them. Absence sharpens love. Presence strengthens it. Those words from Thomas Fuller pierce deep because they explain why your silence isn't just quiet, it's haunting. My friends, when you walked away and shut your mouth, you didn't just leave them in silence, you left them with ghosts. And ghosts, unlike the living, can't be argued with, can't be silenced, can't be controlled. Your silence resurrects every memory they once took for granted, and those memories start circling their mind like shadows they can't outrun. Imagine it this way: when you were present, you were like running water from a faucet, constant, reliable, always there. They could splash in it, waste it, even ignore it, because they thought it would never stop flowing. But the moment you turned the handle off, suddenly every drop mattered. They started replaying in their head how refreshing it felt, how comforting it was, how much it filled their cup. And now, no matter how much they twist the knob, nothing comes out. That absence doesn't erase you, it amplifies you. At first, they tell themselves they're fine. They'll say, "I didn't need him. I'm better without him." They'll laugh with friends, post selfies, go out more. But every night when the crowd disappears, the silence replays your voice, your laugh, your presence. It replays the way you protected them, the way you listened, the way you made them feel safe when the world was chaos. And here's the cruel irony: the very things they dismissed are the very things they now crave. Let's break a lie they believed. They thought memories fade with distance. They assumed that once you left, you'd slowly disappear from their mind like smoke in the air. But silence doesn't erase memories. It sharpens them. Every quiet moment, every empty day, every unanswered call is like polishing a lens. Suddenly, what was once blurry becomes painfully clear. They don't just remember you, they remember you better. And that better becomes torture. Think of it like a song that comes on unexpectedly. At first, it's just background noise. Then a lyric hits, a chord strikes, and suddenly their chest tightens because it reminds them of you. That's how memories work, in silence. They invade, uninvited. A cafe you visited, a joke you shared, a street you walked down together. Every detail becomes a trigger, and those triggers sting harder now because they know they'll never experience them with you again. Marcus Aurelius said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, and silence infects their thoughts with regret." They don't get to control which memories surface. They don't get to decide what moments replay. And more often than not, it's the moments when you were giving, when you were patient, when you were present, that haunt them most. The very things they failed to honor now stand as reminders of what they lost. And here's what makes it unbearable: memories don't argue back. If they fought with you, they could justify themselves. If they blamed you, they could protect their pride. But when it's just them and the memory, there's no defense. They can't explain away your kindness, your sacrifice, your loyalty. They can only sit with the truth that they wasted it, and that truth eats at them like acid. Meanwhile, what's happening to you? You're not haunted. You're healed. You're not stuck in the past. You're building the future. While they're pacing through old conversations, you're walking into new opportunities. While they're replaying your love in their mind, you're learning to love yourself better than ever before. Their haunting is your freedom, and that's the beauty of silence. It keeps you light while it weighs them down. Here's the paradox: the less you do, the more they remember. The less you speak, the louder your absence sounds. The less you show up, the more they see you in everything. You don't even have to try. Your silence does the work for you, and their own memory becomes the punishment. So, my friends, take this affirmation today. My absence is power. Write it in the comments. Show yourself, show the world, remind everyone who watches you rise that silence isn't emptiness, it's presence in another form. Stay with me, because what comes next will expose the greatest weapon of silence, the mystery, the uncertainty of not knowing where you stand, what you think, or who you've become. And that mystery, my friends, is what truly destroys them. Number 6, the mystery that destroys them. Uncertainty is the most painful poison. My friends, let that settle in your chest, because silence doesn't just take away your words, it creates mystery. And mystery, when they once had certainty, is unbearable. Before, they could read you like an open book. If you were hurt, you spoke. If you were upset, you explained. If you were insecure, you asked. They thrived on that predictability because it gave them comfort. Even in chaos, they knew exactly how you'd respond. But once you go silent, once you shut the door and refuse to react, that predictability is gone. Suddenly, they're left staring at a book with blank pages, and that's when the panic sets in. Imagine this: a gambler at a slot machine. They keep pulling the lever because they know sooner or later the machine will pay out something: coins, lights, noise. But one day they pull the lever and nothing happens. No sound, no movement, no reward. They pull again. Nothing. They slam their hands, they shake the machine, they beg it to respond, but it remains still. That's what your silence feels like. They used to treat you like a machine that always responded to the pull of their actions. But now your stillness terrifies them because it proves they were never in control of the outcome. The questions start haunting them. Is he angry? Is he hurt? Has he moved on? Is he talking to someone else? Did he forget me completely? Their pride won't let them ask directly, so they suffer in silence, trapped in a storm of their own imagination. And my friends, the imagination is often crueler than reality. They start picturing you laughing without them, living freely, maybe even holding someone else's hand. They torment themselves with scenarios that may not even be true, but the silence makes them all feel real. Here's a lie they believed: that they were the center of your world. They assumed that no matter what, you would always circle back, always check in, always give them updates on your heart. But silence exposes the truth. You were never bound to them. Your life doesn't orbit theirs. The moment you chose yourself, they lost the privilege of knowing what's inside your mind. And that, more than anything, destroys them. Because attention told them they still mattered. Silence tells them they don't. Epictetus said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them." That's exactly what silence does. It hands them no facts, no clarity, just a blank space they're forced to fill with their own judgment. And because the ego hates uncertainty, they fill it with fear. They assume the worst. They assume you're better off. They assume you're happier. And even if you're simply sitting in peace, that picture in their mind eats away at them more than any harsh word ever could. Here's the beauty for you. Silence removes you from their grasp, but keeps you alive in their thoughts. You don't have to post. You don't have to explain. You don't have to prove. Your absence becomes a riddle they can't solve. And every unsolved riddle drives them deeper into their own frustration. Mystery is a power most men underestimate. When you're predictable, you're manageable. When you're unpredictable, you're magnetic. And silence cloaks you in that magnetic aura. Now, let's be real. It's not easy to sit in silence when every part of you wants to break it. You want to show them you're okay. You want to prove you're winning. You want to shout your progress from the rooftops. But remember, mystery is strength. The less they know, the more they imagine. And what they imagine will always be heavier than the truth. Every unanswered text, every unopened message, every day you don't return chips away at their composure until cracks start forming in the mask they wear for the world. And here's the irony. The same silence that confuses them is the same silence that heals you, because you no longer live to explain. You no longer burn energy keeping them informed. You're free, free to move, free to grow, free to rise without needing their approval. And while you grow stronger in your mystery, they grow weaker in their paranoia. That's the great reversal. So take this affirmation today. My silence makes me untouchable. Write it in the comments, let it echo, let it stand as proof that you don't need to prove anything. Stay with me, because what comes next will show you the most powerful shift of all, how silence isn't punishment for them, but freedom for you. And that, my friends, is where your true power begins. Number 7. Silence as their punishment, your freedom. Peace begins when the need to control ends. My friends, those words aren't just philosophy, they are a roadmap. Because while they see your silence as punishment, for you it is freedom. For them, silence feels like a prison cell with no key. For you, it feels like walking out into open fields, breathing fresh air for the first time in years. That's the paradox. The same silence that destroys them is the silence that rebuilds you. Let's imagine it. Think of two people standing in a storm. One thrives on the lightning, screaming into the thunder, throwing chaos like weapons. The other stands there, exhausted, trying to reason with the storm, trying to calm the thunder, trying to explain away the lightning. But one day, he steps out. He stops shouting back, stops fighting the rain, and walks into shelter. Suddenly, the storm has no audience, no resistance, no one to drench. It rages on, but it loses power because silence withdrew from it. That's what happens when you finally walk away. The storm doesn't end for them, but it does end for you. They'll call your silence cruel, they'll call it immature. They'll even tell others you're avoiding responsibility, but deep inside, they know the truth. They know your silence isn't punishment, it's proof. Proof that you no longer need the chaos to feel alive. Proof that you've chosen to protect your peace instead of pouring it into someone who thrived on draining it. Silence is not about revenge, it's about rebirth. Let me break another lie. They think silence means you're weak, that you're too afraid to speak up, too timid to confront. But strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes strength whispers, and sometimes it doesn't speak at all. It simply stands. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." And that's exactly what your silence does. It transforms you from reactive to unshakable, from predictable to untouchable. For them, silence feels like a punishment because it takes away their favorite game, control. When you argued, they knew how to twist your words. When you defended yourself, they knew how to flip the script. When you chased, they knew how to stall just enough to keep you running. But silence erases the playbook. No reactions, no explanations, no responses, nothing to grab onto. It's like a boxer swinging at shadows. The more they throw, the more exhausted they become, until they collapse under the weight of their own effort. Meanwhile, you're free, free from the endless cycle of conflict, free from the need to prove yourself, free from the noise that never brought clarity. Silence clears your path so you can focus on what actually matters, your mission, your growth, your future. And while they sink deeper into confusion, you rise higher into peace. Think of silence as a trade. You traded nights of overthinking for nights of rest. You traded arguments that went in circles for plans that move you forward. You traded chasing someone's validation for chasing your own goals. That trade is the definition of freedom. And the irony. The more you walk in that freedom, the more they feel punished by it. Because nothing torments someone more than watching the person they underestimated thrive without them. Here's what they don't understand. Your silence is not aimed at them at all. It's not about breaking them down. It's about building yourself up. It's about stepping out of the role of caretaker, explainer, defender, and stepping into the role of a man who knows his worth. They wanted a reaction. You gave them reflection. They wanted a fight. You gave them finality. They wanted your energy. You gave them emptiness. And in that emptiness, they realize they were never as powerful as they thought. So, my friends, let this truth hit you. Silence doesn't just free you, it crowns you. It's the crown of discipline, the crown of peace, the crown of strength. It's proof that you value yourself more than their approval. And once you learn to walk in that silence, you never go back to begging, chasing, or pleading. You've outgrown the noise, and that growth is irreversible. Take this affirmation with you. My silence sets me free. Type it in the comments. Let it be your declaration. Show yourself, show the world, show anyone watching that you don't need noise to prove strength. You live it quietly. And if this message lit something inside you, hit the like button, subscribe, and share this with a brother who needs to hear it. Stay with me, because this journey of silence is only the beginning. You've just stepped into a level of power most will never understand.